Good morning.
Good morning.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm looking forward to learning from these ladies, so I will keep my remarks brief but be available for questions and answers. One message that I want to make sure that everyone takes away from today is the discretionary grants team serves as a resource for you, and we have funding available to assist you. So if you have employers that are in need of training for skilled workers, please contact us. I know some of you all have additional funding, but if we can work together, we can really leverage resources and make a significant difference. Arkansas received a sector strategies grant from DOL last year. And that grant enabled us to do two things. One, to train dislocated workers, and we received a significant amount of money in that area, and we still have a significant amount of money available. So if you all need assistance in training dislocated workers, please let us know. The sectors that we focused on were sectors that employers reached out to us and asked for assistance. Advanced manufacturing, particularly the aerospace industry, is a target of this grant. Healthcare, information technology, and construction. Those are key sectors not only for the grant but also for the state. The Arkansas Economic Development Commission has also targeted those areas as areas of potential growth for the state. It's important for us to work with AEDC both at the state level and local level so that we are coordinating our sector efforts to match and align. We can certainly learn from them and they can certainly learn from us. Many times what you all see working with your employers, your job seekers, can share insight that they may not have so that both strategies are effective. The second part of the grant is a sector strategies planning aspect. We received funding to help us plan both at the state level and funding for each of the local areas in the state. So that can be used to assist local areas in implementing their sector strategies plans. I know that having sat on the local plan review committee, that many of you have targeted certain sectors in your areas using your knowledge, your business contacts, and data from LMI. So if you need further assistance, there's funding available, and I think each area has been offered that opportunity for your implementation. It's very important in sector strategies to involve business up front and as a key or critical partner. And business needs to feel like they're the lead partner, but oftentimes employers are very busy with their day-to-day, so we are here to help them target the training they need and develop the workforce that they need. So I'm sure each and every one of you with your business contacts have involved them in the process, but it's critical that they remain closely involved. We have asked for an extension in the ASP grant. We have not been granted it, but we have asked for that extension, and we are pending word. I do know that all the other recipients of ASP grants in the region are also applying for an extension. I think the reality of the difficulty of finding dislocated workers is across state lines, and also the recognition that sector strategies planning takes a little longer than DOL initially thought. Hopefully both of those factors will come into play when they consider the extensions for all of the grant recipients. We have resources still available, not only under the ASP grant, but through apprenticeship. And apprenticeship is an opportunity to work with industry in certain sectors. We certainly would like to develop apprenticeships in our targeted areas of manufacturing, particularly aerospace, IT, and healthcare. Apprenticeship is well developed in construction, and we want to continue to support that and expand those opportunities, but we'd also like to work with employers to expand apprenticeship to new industries. And as employers have been finding it hard to get the skilled workforce they need, they're much more open to strategies such as apprenticeship. DOL has also awarded us 3 grants to assist in expanding apprenticeship in the state. And so those funds can be used with your targeted sector partners to develop training. And it's really a win-win. A lot of folks are not familiar with apprenticeship and the benefits for apprenticeship. We're hoping to and plan to partner with apprenticeship providers, community colleges, and others to get out the good word about the benefits of apprenticeship, both to the job seeker and to business. And as you focus on the sectors in your region, this is another tool with funding that you can take to your identified sector partners. On your table is information about our grants and some flyers that you can give to employers. Feel free to contact us. The discretionary grants team welcomes the opportunity to visit with you all, and also we would be delighted to come and join you in your conversations with your employers, with your training providers, or with you. It's all about supporting each other so that we can have the highest quality workforce in the state of Arkansas and the highest quality standard of living for Arkansans. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lisa, and good morning, everybody. It is a thrill to be here, and we are really excited at Mayor that we're in a long-term relationship with you all, and hope that several of the ideas that you hear today, that you'll go back and talk with your coaches and facilitators of your regional teams, and we will do everything we can to help support and supplement the ideas that you're interested in and building them in your regional sector plans. So I just really want to encourage you to have those conversations as a follow-up to this meeting. I want to share just a little bit about what we're doing in partnership with you here in Arkansas, and want to start by saying what a great opportunity to have the planning resources and to have the opportunity to do this with your partners very intentionally from the get-go. Really take advantage of this planning time with your partners and building a comprehensive strategy, and just want to reinforce that message that business-led is really the only way that this is going to be long-term successful. The relationship building with your core partners in your regions, as well as with the business community, can't be emphasized more, because the good building blocks, a great foundation supports a great house. And if we rush into things and not really think through what those relationships are and how we're going to work together long term and develop that trust and credibility, and I'm sure in a lot of regions you already have that among your education, your economic development, your workforce development, your community-based organizations, and all of the partners within the workforce system. But just wanted to set that tone as we begin. So really, as we work through the industry sector strategy support network with you, there are a couple things that we really want to focus on. One is that expansion of diverse partnerships, the recognition that that partnership should be employer-led and have all of the partners critical to the success of building that talent pipeline around the table listening. Business is talking and setting the tone, setting that discussion, and then the core partners are all about behind the scenes pulling all the different programs, resources, and tools together to meet the vision that that employer community sets the tone for. The second thing is really about integrating career pathways, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later with the Kentucky experience, but I think about sector strategies as the what, and I think about career pathways as the how. And now we have a wonderful opportunity under WIOA to really build in work-based learning as part of that career pathway piece too, and I'll talk some more about that. And then to identify and align resources to support those collaborative strategies, and I'll share with you a little later some of the ways that we did that in Kentucky, but there certainly are lots of different approaches that we've seen all across the country about aligning resources and braiding resources. And that's not necessarily about partners having to give up their money. It's about partners having a conversation about how we use money to complement and support our overall objectives together. And I know sometimes in the partner world, when we hear resource alignment and expansion and braiding, folks get nervous. Somebody wants my money. And instead what it is we have a master plan where all of the resources are moving in a common direction to meet the workforce needs, to make sure your individual customers, whether you're in voc rehab or adult ed or the community college system or the workforce system, have the opportunities to have that family sustaining wage, a quality of life, and a meaningful career pathway, and that our employer community has the workforce they need to stay here in Arkansas, to grow here in Arkansas, and be really successful. And then the final part of the work that we're working on with you is to align business and job seeker services so that it's not just a policy and we've identified our sectors and isn't that nice, but how does it change the way we do business in the career centers? How do we do business differently in our business services strategies in the region? And so that really is the exciting part about the work that we're doing with you. And just to give folks a little sense, I think that Lisa already hit on a lot of these elements. It's about really building that long-term relationship to help train and support staff and partners in doing this work, using data-driven decision-making in the process. So important. It's not enough to think that we know what our businesses need, but really hear from business what they need, as well as to take the data that we get, whether it's from the state or a university, a community college, anywhere within the system, and validating it with business and industry. I'll talk to you a little bit about that later. Aligning training needs with the targeted sectors, the focus on collaboration among all the partners, apprenticeship and other work-based learning brings an important part, because when employers hire, they usually say, I'm looking for this certificate or credential or degree, and we're looking for so many years experience. So if we build work-based learning into the career pathway work we're doing, that creates that opportunity to graduate with the credential the employer needs and with the work experience that they're looking for. And such a great opportunity. We're also in this Arkansas work talking about customer-centered design and design thinking. And with that, it is really immersing ourselves in our customer's perspective, whether it's the individual customer or the business customer, and saying, how might we do things differently once we really understand their perspective of our system and the services that we provide and where we go from there. Doing self-assessments and asset mapping so that you know the resources in your community. It's not just your core partners, but private foundations, community-based organizations, and others who have resources that can be woven into this tapestry. So important, especially when we're trying to move low-skilled adults into career pathways. Those wraparound services become so important in the discussion. And then talking about sectors in a rural perspective. And I know a little something about this because in Kentucky, in Appalachia, for example, heavy coal mine industry, they lost 70% of their economic power when coal took a hit. and they had to retool in a rural community where it's all mountains and they don't have manufacturing. So we can talk real terms about that as we go along through the session today. And then building career pathways in the industry sectors and really making sure that from K to university that we're not aligned like this, but we're aligned like this, right? We can build it and say we have articulation agreements, but if they don't work all the way through, and they don't include adult ed, and they don't include community colleges and K-12 and universities so that there's multiple entry and exit points, then we're struggling a little bit with that work. So I wanted to put a little spotlight on the Northwest Arkansas region and the work that's going on there. Janie Wheeler is working with one of our facilitators, Christine Herzog, and the goals for the Northwest Arkansas is that they develop efficient partnerships, and they are looking at their employer community, education community, workforce partners, community-based organizations to prepare. And I think that that's foundational, the taking a broad approach to who your partners are and really opening the tent very wide and in maybe some non-traditional ways is great. To enhance their services to employers and job seekers, as well as to increase awareness of the talent development system. I'll tell you, it is a struggle, probably as much in Colorado and Kentucky. Folks, employers don't know all of the value that the resources that are available through the workforce system and how to tap into them. So championing that can't be stressed enough. And then to address the skills gaps. So what are some of the things that your colleagues in Northwest Arkansas are focusing on? First of all, they are working closely with other organizations and leveraging those partners. They're really going to do a good asset map and be able to figure out how they can make resources work together. They're focusing on healthcare, manufacturing, IT, and construction, the state sector areas, but they've now decided they want to do some exploratory work in hospitality and tourism. And that they're going to go where the data takes them. And I think that's fabulous. There's an emphasis on really building that talent pipeline, and then they're looking for transferable skills across industries. And that becomes very important for a couple of reasons. There are things like project management and financial services and other things that are inherent across those pathways. And if you're in a situation where you have a distressed industry that's leaving, coal miners in Kentucky had transferable skills to healthcare. How many of you would have thought that? And auto workers have transferable skills to healthcare because they're very technology-based industries. So when you're taking a look at where you go in the future from that perspective, that can be a really helpful part of the discussion to think about what are those transferable skills and what can we do to build those across industries. So, and they've also done a really nice job of bringing all of their education partners around the table. They've brought their education cooperative around the table and post-secondary institutions, both community colleges and universities, and I think that really makes sense when you do career mapping for people. And as we're moving, in particular, low-skilled adults, you know, they need to be working and building stackable credentials. And so building that pipeline in a way that someone can work and learn at the same time is really something worth considering as you're building out your talent pipeline work. So I want to share a little bit about Kentucky's experience, and want to share too that it really started out with a conversation with every local workforce investment area showcasing what they were already doing in sectors. And I can't encourage you enough that that relationship among the regions here in Arkansas to commit to sharing what's working well with your promising practices, as well as sharing what your challenges are among each other, you'll be surprised. There are a lot of experts in this room, whether it's adult ed folks, vocational rehabilitation folks, community college folks, K-12 folks, university folks, workforce professionals at all levels of the system that have had different experiences that can help be problem solvers as you're facing this. I think Lisa made a good point that things are business led, but there really is the role for that convener and intermediary, and how that convener and intermediary works with folks can be an important part of that. But it really started, that conversation started with what was already going on in the locals so that we could figure out where we as the state could support things going forward. We identified what we called our success factors for sectors. And for those of you who are in a beginning stages of your work, I think that these are really nice guideposts. First of all, it starts with really great data. And it's really great data that you validate with your business community. Because not only should there be state sectors, but there should be regional sectors that are based on the assets that you have in your regional economy. Whether it's land, university focuses, people, and what their skill sets and competencies are at this point, and where you want to move them to. And that takes data that's validated by business and industry. And I'll give you a couple examples. We would not have chosen auto and aircraft manufacturing as a Kentucky state or regional sector during our initial conversations looking at the data. But we didn't know that economic development was getting ready to put a $9 million investment in Ford, or something in helicopters in Lexington, or the Corvette plant. So those conversations with our economic development friends, so in your regions, having those conversations with economic development folks, it's really important for that. Another sector that we may not have worked on in Kentucky that we ended up investing in was energy creation and transmission. When we looked at the data, the workforce was there and they were fully staffed, but it was the employer community that told us we're going to lose 70% of our workforce in the next 5 years. So the community college system got busy and doing lineman training and all kinds of energy creation and transmission support work, and then geared up to address those challenges. So that's why I want to say it's not only important to have the data, but it's important to validate the data. They're founded on a regional vision, and that only happens by bringing your community leaders in the region together, economic development leaders, workforce leaders, education leaders, community leaders, to have a discussion about what you want your region to look like and be like for the long term, and where we need to get the investment, because we need all those resources moving in the same direction, and it's not going to happen if you don't have a regional vision for where that goes. That it's guided by business and industry, and you're going to hear us say this over and over again because it is a major theme. We can no longer develop curriculum and take it to business and say, is this what you need and want? Have we developed it in the right area? I can tell you stories in Kentucky where business raised money to create an advanced manufacturing program in the community college and build a new building. And after 5 years of operation, they had 5 graduates. And the reason why was they didn't bring the businesses in when it came to building the curriculum, and they had a talent pipeline recruitment challenge. They needed to convince young people in K-12 that advanced manufacturing was no longer dirty, dark, and dangerous, that it was advanced industry technology, major sophisticated technological things going on in plants. And so they had to totally regroup, and their sector partnership did a talent pipeline study, and they did a business study, and they identified 16 career pathways in advanced manufacturing in Northern Kentucky, and they started building those pipelines. And then they started an ambassador program where they immersed young people at the 8th and 9th grade level in what advanced manufacturing looked like. And they went back and talked to their parents, their teachers, the school superintendent, the counselors, and others that needed to realize there was something different going on in advanced manufacturing than when my father was working at the Ford plant in Louisville. So those are the types of things that are important. It leads to strategic alignment. That means that if you're going to develop integrated education and training programs, you do it in the sectors that are important to your region and the state. It's nice to do the others, but we have to be strategic. Our money isn't getting any bigger from the feds or the state or the local areas, and we really need to partner, and we need to build that alignment along the way. It means that we transform how our services are offered, and I'll talk a little more as we go along about that. And that we have to measure our process and our progress measures along the line. So when we started sectors in Kentucky, certified driver's licenses, CDLs, were the number one way that we used ITA money. By 6 years into our process, it matched our 5 state sectors: healthcare, business services, energy creation and transmission, transportation, distribution, and logistics, and healthcare. So being intentional about that, and now they're doing a gap analysis, and they can say, how many people do we have moving through the pipeline at any particular point in time? And does it meet the demand of business and industry? But that didn't happen overnight. And so I want you to hear clearly, it's about progress, not perfection, right? And so those were some of the keys for us. So the next thing, I talked about this earlier, I've really, sometimes when we talk about sector strategies, career pathways, and work-based learning, we think about them as different things. And the workforce system's responsible for sector strategies, the education system's responsible for career pathways, and work-based learning is kind of like all of ours maybe. We need to look at sector strategies, career pathways, and work-based learning like this. Yeah. And that your industry partnerships that you establish in your regions to address state and regional sector priorities need to be the hub for where career pathways are developed and get the business buy-in, and where work-based learning is organized, because this is about being sensitive to our businesses. They cannot go to the Perkins Committee and the Adult Ed Committee and the Community College Committee and the University Committee, that for all of the institutions, within your system, and tell the same story over and over and over again. We want to get to the point that the business community can tell their story once about what they need and what their expectations are, and have one line of communication with folks. And that's hard for us, whether we're in the workforce system and we're the voc rehab partner, or the adult ed partner, or the vets partner, or the migrant seasonal farm worker partner. It's tough to be that disciplined, but it's critical if we're going to keep business at the table. So the next was to really talk about that partner alignment. We developed a structure in Kentucky for unified business services and service delivery. And this included for us our labor cabinet, where apprenticeship is housed. It included the Department of Workforce Investment, which had the Title I, Title III, Title III, and Title IV programs under WIOA. We didn't have adult ed, but adult ed was at the table through our higher education folks, and our community college folks were at the table, and our Kentucky Career Center workforce system. And those were the core partners that we started with. And we focused on 4 things: customer service, so that unified business services strategy that I've talked about. Second was streamlining resources. And I knew we were making progress here when the partner agencies that had money for incumbent worker, and we all do, decided that they would change their applications and give bonus points for incumbent worker proposals that included our sectors, state and regional sectors, and that they could make business could make an application to all of the partners, and then the partners would have a conversation and say, who is the right entity to fund this proposal? Instead of making the business apply to the community college and get rejected, apply to economic development and get rejected, and then come to the workforce system and get their incumbent worker proposal funded. That takes a lot of trust and credibility. Unified marketing and performance measures. We started marketing ourselves at the state and the regional level as the Kentucky Skills Network. And instead of having, we had 54 people who were doing business services work in all of these partner agencies. They formed regional teams, and they decided who among them would be the team leader. They decided how they were going to organize around sectors or relationships or alphabet or whatever. We didn't structure that from the state. They decided how it worked. In one area, which is a rural area, they went from making 500 business contacts a year to 5,000 business contacts a year by working in unison with each other and having them tell the story once, coming back to the partners, developing a systemic solution, and then going back with a proposal to that business community. And then finally, with the workforce development pipeline work and building our sector partnerships and building career pathways, what I would tell you is it doesn't matter whether it's bottom up or whether it's top down, whether the conversation starts at the state or it starts in the region. What matters is that we organize in a way that works for that particular industry, and they all are a little different in how they engage and their cultures. So you can't just take a cookie cutter model of this is how we're going to build a business partnership relationship and make it work in every sector. You have to kind of mix that up a little bit. So I thought I'd share a little bit about why did we go to Unified Business Services in Kentucky? Because we did business roundtables across the state. We held 10 of them. And across the state, the business community said, I'm so tired of having people come knock on my door from government and from education entities and try to sell me their program. And so that's when we all decided, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to talk about what our roles and responsibilities are and how we're going to function together. And when we go to business, whether it's in an industry partnership relationship or whether it's an individual business, we're representing all of the partners, and we're going to have all the tools in the toolbox. And it took investment at the regional level, and it took investment at the state level, and a collaborative relationship back and forth on how that worked. But I'm going to share really quickly some of those roles. So our economic development partners were really responsible for business retention, expansion, and attraction. And they were representing a concierge brand for us with the workforce system. They were really keen on being the convener around economic data and sector prioritization. Like I told you, we got some really good information from them about investments. And we had to respect the confidentiality piece of that. That is probably the greatest fear of our economic development partners, is that they have a conversation with us in workforce, and then they overhear us having a conversation about that sector need at Walmart or wherever we might be. And so that confidentiality is the piece that is the biggest issue that we have to work through with our economic development partners. Collaboratively convening those industry partnership teams, working on the recruitment, focusing on their resources with incumbent workers, and then just making sure that we are on track with understanding where business is and where it's going and the business life cycle within a particular sector. When we talk about workforce development, and I'm talking about workforce development system partners, I'm talking adult ed, I'm talking community colleges, I'm talking vocational rehabilitation, I'm talking about all those folks who are investing in the training dollars, right? Our job is to quantify the talents, the pipeline data for each of the targeted sectors. So in Kentuckiana Works in Louisville, they need 2,000 IT workers a year. And a nice little IT program that produces 100 certified workers was not going to meet the long-term needs. And they had to turn their design program flipped on its head, and instead they created a treehouse curriculum where individuals who were interested in IT got online and went through an online course for 6 weeks. If they completed it, they met businesses and workforce professionals in the library because the Career Center was not big enough to house it. And then they made matches with businesses and established internships, customized training programs, and OJT programs to meet the needs. Totally radicalized the way that they were using their training dollars because they had a supply need that was far greater than their current structure to be able to deliver. Operationalizing that, how do things change in our career centers for individual customers and business customers that walk through the door? Thinking about really being strategic about the partners, your training partners that get approved for the eligible training provider list. Not just putting on anybody because they've sent an application in, but really being strategic about how they line up with your state and regional sectors and the jobs that people need. Assisting in the competency-based models and validating those models. You know, it's not enough to teach welding. Are you teaching the right type of welding, right, for business and industry? And then the labor exchange piece, really doing the job to screen candidates, to deliver them, that sort of thing. So our community college friends, which is, and really this should be the education system partners. I noticed that when I should have changed that before. But I'm talking adult ed, I'm talking K-12, I'm talking community colleges, I'm talking universities about the education role. That we create the curriculum asset maps, that they lead the competency and validation for programs that are being taught, but that businesses are engaged at the front end about what career pathways, what credentials, what work-based learning complements it, those sorts of things on the front end. It will save a lot of pain on the back end. They're involved with skills assessment, curriculum sharing agreements. We had situations in Kentucky where like the lineman training was developed in one community college and they weren't willing to share it with other community colleges because it was going to be a competitive disadvantage for them. We had to get over that. Yeah. We have a need, a responsibility to build the workforce that is needed by our employers. So those are the types of changes that had to be made. So we embedded sector strategies in a whole host of things that we were working on. First of all, I talked about our incumbent worker money, KCTCS trains, our Bluegrass State Skills money, and our workforce development money, all aligned itself to support the state and regional sectors, and that there was a priority. It wasn't that they didn't fund other things in other sectors, but there were bonus points made for investing, for applying for those types of training in areas where business and industry needed them. We created our Kentucky Skills Network business service teams at the regional level. They were empowered at the regional level. They were trained by state partners so that everyone had enough knowledge about the tools in the toolbox. They weren't expert in them all, but they could speak to them and start developing their strategy for how they related to each other. We had the Work Ready Communities Initiative, and if you take a look at Kentucky's standards around that, it's more than the ACT standards, and so a very important part of it. Accelerating Opportunity Kentucky, we engaged in integrated education and training that led to accelerated credentials where individuals get their GED and their certificate at the same time. They're being team taught by an adult ed instructor and a technical instructor. They have a success coach from the community college system that helps them navigate. They have a career coach from the workforce system who helps them get internships, shadowing, and work-based learning experiences while they're going through the program. They are in a cohort together so that if I don't show up for class, Stephanie's calling going, I missed you, where are you? What's happening? And it's revolutionized our community college experience. They're 9 times more successful. These are folks who are basic skills deficient, did not have their GED or high school diploma, or they did and still were basic skills deficient. They were outperforming the general population enrolled in the same programs of study. What does that tell you? Revolutionized. And now they're using this model for more programs in the community college system than just to deal with what they thought were developmental ed folks and, GED folks. Powerful stuff. Our high impact WIB initiative included efforts around sector strategies in strategic plans and so forth. Workforce Academy, we trained our staff around this. We brought people in from voc rehab, adult ed, the community college system, career and tech ed, and others, and we said, this is our sector vision, and the very person who works in the reception desk, how would your job be different, and what do we need to train you so that you can be successful in what your job needs to be in a sector-based service delivery structure versus this current structure that we have. And then we developed the curriculum, and we did a training across the state about the elements of sector strategies, and then specific training for different positions based on what that sector talent was. Our Kentucky Career Center certification standards included sectors, and we overhauled our training. At the local level, you should be thinking about your youth procurement, your youth services procurement, and you should be mandating your regional and state sectors be the sectors that your youth providers are preparing people for example. Building an apprenticeship and braiding resources, all are the types of things that need to happen. I think I've talked about the examples as I was going along, so I'm going to flip through this one. And so the last things I would share with you are how passionate I am about sectors, career pathways, and work-based learning being integrated and being together and attracting your employer voice. Here you see the expectation of business is to say, what are the certificates and credentials and skill sets we need, and to validate the information, the data that you're using to build out what you're doing. It's our job in the workforce system to then provide them with qualified individuals who have the certificates that they need and have work experience that complements them. We have the ability to be able to have some shared goals and strategies, like increasing the number of businesses and individuals that we serve, that we draw a really clear picture of what the workforce supply and demand need is, and that we start building the mechanisms to support that. And then that we really recognize that this is an organizational and a cultural change that really takes place at every level, local to state and state to local. Some success factors in strategies moving forward. Regionalizing some of the local practices you already have. So in your regional conversations, there may be places where you have parts and pieces of what you want. Take those things to scale. Move beyond engaging business to really having business lead the conversation. They should be the people that find the business champion, have them invite their other business colleagues to the industry partnership, have them run the meeting, and have us as the partners sitting on the outside of the ring, listening and then providing engagement where they want us to. Think about how we bring this to scale, how we bring career pathways to scale. It's so important to use every asset from mentoring to apprenticeship to really bring the work-based experience to there. And then operationalizing it, thinking about what you're doing in the centers, And then finally, just talking about strategic, customized solutions for industry sectors. The one-to-one business relationship is nice, but it will never get us to scale with the impact that we need to have with talent. And small business folks are the president, the HR person, and the other level of management within their companies. So they can't be engaged in 20 different opportunities and advisory committees. They need a place to make an impact, and we need to recognize that and support that and expand our services based on that collaboratively. So, been talking for a little while, and what we want to do is now give you the opportunity to have a tabletop discussion. Where you're sitting now, we want you to take about 10 minutes to have a couple of conversations. First is,
Really quick. Why don't we suggest if people only have 2 or 3 people, maybe they join another table?
excellent. So if you're at a table and you're 1 or 2 people, join another table so that you have a fuller group. We want to fill out those tables, but the 2 things that we want you to do is to say, what role should your regional leadership play? That means education, economic development, workforce development, human services, and integrating sector strategies, career pathways, and work-based learning. Also, if you were going to go look at a place that was doing that, what types of things do you think they'd be doing? We're going to give you about 10 minutes to talk amongst yourselves, and then we're going to come around and ask a few of you to share your thoughts and suggestions. Everybody good? If you're at a small table, join another table, and then it is
9:20.
9:20. At 9:30, we'll turn the mic over to you for a few minutes.
So as in the introduction, I am Stephanie Veck. I'm the director of the Colorado Workforce Development Council. But the thing that I really would like to share with all of you that doesn't come across in a bio is that I am a Colorado native, 5th generation from the San Luis Valley, which is an extremely rural part of Colorado. So I understand, it's hard when you have somebody come from somewhere else and come into your state or your community and tell you all the things you should be doing, and that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to share the really hard work that Colorado has done for the last 12 years and hope that maybe some of the great sharing and mentoring and help that states like Kentucky and Pennsylvania and Oregon and Washington did for Colorado, that maybe I can give back and help you. And maybe we took over the last 4 years work that other states have been doing along with Colorado for 20 years. We condensed that into a really intense process over the last 4 years and got a lot done. Maybe by coming and sharing and being willing to give you everything that we have, that we've worked collaboratively with other states and national subject matter experts, maybe by sharing that with you, you guys will be able to accomplish what took us 4 years. Maybe you can do it in 18 months or 2 years. But I can't stress enough, it's work. And it's partnership and it's collaboration, and there are trials and there are failures, and it's okay to fail, because when you fail you learn and you get better next time. And so I just really want to stress that I do understand what it's like. I grew up on a farm in the San Luis Valley. I owned and operated my own businesses for 20 years before I came to work for the state. And when I came to work for the state, the only thing I knew about workforce or economic development was how to run a business and how to hire people and how to struggle with not being able to afford the quality of people that I needed, or even if I could afford them, I couldn't find them. And so when I was asked to come as a business person and join our State Office of Economic Development, and then asked to, as an interim role 7 years ago, I was supposed to do this job for 8 months. When I was asked to do that, my first answer was, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know the public workforce system. I don't know the education system. And they said, that's why we want you here, because we need a fresh lens and fresh eyes. And I still don't claim to be an expert. If you want to know all of the details, the expertise like Beth has, like Lisa has, you're in the right place with these folks, because I really am coming to you as a business person and as a person who's passionate about collaboration and coordination across state agencies and our local partners. You all are the experts in workforce development, adult education, economic development. You can rely on each other for that. I'm just here to hope that maybe something that I can share with you will make one of your dips a little bit less deep and your acceleration a little bit faster. So hopefully we can have a little bit of fun this morning and learn something. My last slide will give you a bunch of different links and things to go to learn more. So I'm not really going to get in the weeds. If we'll have some time for question and answers. So if you have questions, I'm happy to answer them. If it feels like I'm staying way too high, I apologize, but it's a lot, and you've already gotten a lot of great information. I will say ditto, 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 ditto to everything that was shared already this morning. These strategies are tried and true, and they work, and they're what we're doing in Colorado, and we've been implementing because of the great help with folks like Beth and her peers across the country. And so I absolutely agree with everything that's been said. So what does that look like in Colorado? First, I should explain a little bit. As Cindy mentioned, we are the State Workforce Board. Every state's a little bit different, and I have worked with folks from your state board before. I've met a couple of your board chairs before and really enjoyed hearing about Arkansas and the great work that you all are doing here. In Colorado, our board is a business-led coalition of state agencies. We had 10 different state agencies that affect workforce, economic development, education, training, higher education, and all of the wraparound services that go along with that, as well as the majority business, as we're required to have. And actually, before WIOA, we had 65% business. Now with the WIOA regs, we have to only do the 52%, or otherwise we'd have 150 people on our board. And having 51 is enough. So our vision is that every Colorado business will have access to skilled talent, and that every Coloradan will have access to meaningful employment that will result in statewide economic vitality. And we're very purposeful about those words. It isn't our job to decide what meaningful employment is. It's the individual's job. It's our job, all of us together, to help get them on a path to figure out what education and training and work experiences they need to get there. And the way we do that in Colorado is through sector partnerships and career pathway strategies. Our mission is to facilitate this coalition to make sure that we're truly integrating across state agencies and local partners for state, local, regional partnerships and public-private partnerships that collaborate and work together in an organized way that allows everybody to do what they're the best at and to leverage each other without walking all over each other and without worrying exactly what you said about who gets the credit. So this little infographic, and I love that about 5 years ago, one of our board members, who's the CEO of a marketing firm, developed this infographic, and we've made like one or two little teeny tiny tweaks. So it's good to know that it's kind of staying true, and we just revisited our strategic plan as we were developing our WIOA state plan, and everyone still agreed. The vision is still the same. The way we do it is still the same, and that is that our strategies are set through sector partnerships, which are led by business, are brought together as a true public-private partnership with our public partners, and that through that industry engagement, both through the regional sector partnerships as well as our statewide trade associations, our Chamber of Commerce, our business roundtables, all of those various groups, our economic development partners, those groups inform the strategies that result in the policies, standards, and measures that drive our implementation. And just as Beth said, sectors and industry engagement are the what, and career pathways, that implementation side, is the how. And so we'll, as you see, our life cycle, it goes into, when it comes to the how to develop a talent pipeline. It is through the career pathways, and that is the coordination of all of the public partners, everyone from Department of Corrections to DVR to Adult Basic Ed to the workforce centers, and on and on and on. We believe that if we constantly work through this cycle, we will eventually reach our vision, which is huge and big, and we know that. But it requires continuous improvement, constant feedback. You don't have the luxury of getting to go to businesses once and say, what do you think, and go back and behind the curtain and figure it all out and present it to them later, like with the manufacturing school that doesn't have any students. It is a constant, continuous improvement. We're never done. And in some respects, that's really scary and frustrating because you'd like to check the box and say you're done. So it's important to have that big long-range goal and to identify milestones along the way so that you can celebrate your successes. Little successes are important. Pat yourselves on the back, congratulate your partners, check the box, and move on to the next milestone, because it will be forever that we are filling our talent pipeline and we are meeting our business's needs for workforce. So I really wanted to take a look, I appreciate that you asked me to be here. I'm honored that you asked me to be here. I can't believe that I'm here. 4 years ago, I would have never believed another state would ask me to come talk about sector strategies because I was in awe of taking it all in from everyone. But I really want to talk about what it means to think differently. Sector partnerships have been around for a very long time. 2 weeks ago, I was honored to get to be a part of faculty in Arizona, where we had 18 teams from different states all over the country come and learn about next generation sector partnerships. And that's really what Beth has been talking about this morning, is the next generation sector partnership. The core difference is these partnerships are using business as a partner, not just seeing business as your customer. It's always about the customer, a lens on the customer, customer focused, whether your customer is the business or a student or a job seeker. But you must work with business as a partner to identify the priorities, to develop the solutions, and to implement them together, hand in hand, as equal partners, not as us serving them or them doing something for us. And so we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the state role. There is a critical role for the state. We absolutely know that at the state, structures are different, so I don't want to assume anything in Arkansas, but in Colorado, very few people get served at the state level. All of the service is done at the local level. Even our Wagner Pizer is at the local level. Everything is at the local level. The work gets done in your offices. The work gets done at an adult basic ed office or at a workforce center, at a community college, or in an economic development office in those meetings, the talking about how to grow your economy. But the state has a critical role. It's important for the state to fulfill their role in order for the local partners and the regional collaborations to be successful. And I want to talk about the regional role. And when I talk a lot about regions. Your local areas are incredibly important. I would imagine you probably have something sort of like Colorado when it comes to your maps. We have no single map that matches everything. If you guys do, I'm going to come study you like crazy and figure out how to make the maps align. Because that was one of my first goals, and I gave up after 3 months. It was like, okay, find a new idea, because nobody's ever going to give up their map. So we have 40 different maps, how people slice and dice our state. What we decided to do is we respect our local area map, we respect our 13 community college map, we respect our 178 different school district map. We respect all of those maps, but we collaborate around our regions that are defined by our economic development plans. And so we talk about 14 regions. Those are our economic development regions, and that's where we start. But the reality is that once you as regional partners come together and decide to collaborate and use the data to figure out what you want to work on, then your job is to go out and find industry champions and figure out if they want to work on it with you. And if they don't, it's okay, let go, don't push it. Go find another industry that can drive your economy and find the industry champions and work with them. You start out doing that. We start out with our regional map as the premise for doing that. But reality is, once you bring industry to the middle and they start to lead, they'll decide what the geography is. So we have sector partnerships that are little tiny geographic area around a university because of that industry. Our bioscience statewide bioscience organization is launching a bioscience sector partnership in partnership with a couple of our workforce local areas, but it's going to be right around the Anschutz Medical Campus along I-70 in Denver. It's not the whole Metro Denver area. It's about a 3-mile radius, and that's fine because that's where the concentration of their businesses are. Our IT sector partnership, many of our local areas tried to launch IT sector partnerships. In Colorado, IT is a huge industry of a bunch of little teeny tiny many companies. And so there wasn't enough critical mass to do real local area IT partnerships. So we partnered with the Colorado Technology Association. We worked together, and we are doing a statewide sector strategy for IT with regional focus and regional groups with our partners throughout the regions. And so you have to, it can be everything. It can be from as tiny as a campus to as big as a whole state. And especially in northern Colorado, we have our no-code partnerships that often include southern Wyoming as well. So it can cross state lines. And I believe your northern Arkansas examples cross some state lines as well. And that's important. It's important to remember that businesses and individuals really don't care about our county lines or our map borders. We're the only ones that care about that. So use it as a tool, but get over it. So Beth already touched on this, so I'm not going to spend much time, but I do want to point out we are in the habit of thinking in our silos. We're in the habit of thinking about education worries about career pathways. They worry about that traditional talent pipeline, education to higher education to career, or to more education and career. Workforce development really thinks, it has thought for a long time about sector partnerships, but it's been about how can we pull business to the table to tell us what we need so we can get the best performance on our grants, so that we can develop a good program that's helping people get jobs. So we're pulling businesses to give us what we want rather than really putting businesses in the center and listening to what they want, and then wrapping our resources and grants and tools and supports around the needs that they define. And then in economic development, industry clusters, where I just talked about that natural geography of clusters of industry, that's been around for a long time. Economic development's great at it. There's a reason for industry clusters, but when you do it right and you really set up the next generation of sector partnerships, you utilize those industry clusters to come together and help you form your sector partnerships, those regional sector partnerships, and then those sector partnerships, when industry decides, and only when industry decides that talent is the challenge, then you use career pathways as how you work with business to help develop the strategies to implement a talent solution for your talent pipeline. And I have to give credit, all of this was work that when I saw this funky little graphic that kind of blows some people's mind, it clicked for me. We had been doing this work, and I've got a timeline slide that'll show you all the work that came up to this point. But in September of 2012, the National Governors Association released a document on the coming of age, sector partnerships, or sector strategies coming of age. And we had a dynamic guy from NGA that he's incredible and great, and I'm not just saying that because he grew up in Grand Junction, Colorado, he really is. But he came and he presented this to us, and when I saw this slide, it clicked. I understood why we needed to not only do sector partnerships, but we needed to make sector partnerships the way we did business with business, not for business. And this kicked off our next generation of sector partnerships. So I urge you, I think you guys right now are probably about at the same place that we were in 2012. You've got some great sector work going on. You're successful. You've got good, strong collaborations at the local level. You're starting to figure out how to bring those collaborations together at the state level. The state's here to support you. You have policies. You're implementing those policies. You're wrapping your grant funds and things around your sector work. But you need help figuring out how it all builds together into a model that works for Arkansas. So I really strongly recommend go back and find that study from 2012. Well, it's not a study, it's a paper from 2012 from NGA, Sector Strategies Coming to Age, and kind of utilize this philosophy. It'll really help. So today's sector partnerships, what are they? They are employer-driven. They're regional, as I already talked about. It's really important that they are, when you go back and you see that little convener, that little gold arrow, I should make that gold arrow like flashing like this because it's the most important, in my mind, it's the most important thing. That convener has to be a credible person or organization that is trusted by both your public partners and your industry. It can be somebody from your workforce center. It can be somebody from your economic development office. It can be somebody from your community colleges. It can be a person from a trade association. It doesn't matter. It is the person in your region and that industry that the public partners trust and the industry trusts and has the capacity to serve as the convener of that partnership. That's all that matters. And the really nice part is when you spread that responsibility, so we have some Northern Colorado sector partnerships where they have a convening team, and I'll talk about that a little bit in our regional roles. They have a convening team that comes together, and all of the public partners are in that convening team. But for manufacturing, it's the community college workforce office that serves as the primary convener for manufacturing. On their healthcare sector partnership, it's the Chamber of Commerce that's serving as their convener. They're launching their energy partnership, and it's the Larimer County Workforce Center that's convening that partnership. They're talking about an education industry partnership, and it'll be the Weld County Workforce Center that's convening that partnership. Two separate local areas, Larimer and Weld, but they collaborate on their sector partnerships because that's what their industry wants to do. That's what their industry does in that region. So it's really important that to think differently about that convener. Act as the coordinating body across all of them, which Beth already talked about. Create a highly customized response to the targeted industry needs, and therefore an accurate response. It isn't about us coming to the table with a whole bunch of carrots saying, I can give you this grant, I can do this for you, I can do that for you. What good is dinner if all you have on the front of in the middle of your plate is a whole bunch of carrots? You need to come to them and say, we have these really great ingredients that might provide a great menu for you of choices to build your talent pipeline. Which ones would you like, and how do we wrap them around this industry to make sure that they're successful? That analogy isn't mine, I stole it. Or wait, I don't steal things. We do a lot of R&D in Colorado, and this R&D came from Lindsay Woolsey of the Woolsey Group. We do R&D, we rip off and duplicate. And everything that I'm giving you today, please rip it off and duplicate it. It's all yours. It was all built with federal dollars, and we want you to take it and make it better. And when you take it and you make it better, we're going to rip it off back. So one thing I do want to stress is I want to stress that it takes a lot of work and it takes a long time. Don't give up if you aren't seeing results in a few months or in a few quarters. This slide, and I'm not going to hit every single one, but I wanted to put this on there because as I just said, we truly launched our next generation of sector partnerships the end of 2012, the beginning of 2013 with our first ever sector summit that we hoped we would get 300 people at. We ended up getting 350 register, and we had to shut the doors at 400 because the hotel wouldn't let us let anybody else in. It was a huge success. We thought maybe we might be able to, matter of fact, our economic development partners were freaking out because they're like, they're super tied to the governor's office, really close, and they kept saying, you're going to promise there's 20 sector partnerships, and if we promise that, we have to make it happen. And I kept saying, no, we don't. This is a local thing. This is a regional thing. Our goal is to have 20 active sector partnerships in the state of Colorado by 2018. That's our goal. We're going to do everything we can to support our local partners in making that happen. But at the end of the day, whether we walk out of this summit with the possibility of 50 or the possibility of 2, what matters is that it's the local partners in the industry that decided what they want to do. And if we have 2, then we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out what we're going to do. So we walked out of that partnership with 30 potential sector partnerships in every one of the 14 geographic regions of the state and representing probably 8 of the key industries in the state of Colorado. Today, we have 12 active, and so there are different areas, and I think I have a slide where I'll hit on that, but we have 12 active sector partnerships, and we're well on our way to having 20 by 2018, which was our original goal. But to me, the biggest successes is we have probably had 12 sector partnerships where the data and the local public partners came together and said, we need a sector partnership in this. So they went out and they explored the possibility, and they talked to business, and they came back and they said, we don't have an industry champion. The industry says they agree that they've got issues, but they don't want to work together. And so they took that partnership off the map and they put it on a back burner, and they've let industry know, when you're ready, we're here for you, and we'll do this when you're ready. But then we take those off the map. So to me, as much as I love the 12 active sector partnerships and the 9 emerging sector partnerships that we're working on right now, and probably another 5 emerging by the end of this year, one of the biggest successes is recognizing before our public partners wasted tons of time and resources on trying to force something to happen, that they have this exploring stage where they figure it out, and when business says no thank you, they say, okay, we're here when you're ready, and they go on to the next one. I can't stress how important it is to have a mechanism at your state level that supports that and a process at your local level that allows for it, and to not count it as a failure, it's a success. So the state's role in creating a sector partnership. Sector partnerships that drive career pathways must be supported at the state level. The state must provide a state framework to align programs and resources, proactively integrate sector strategies as a core way of doing business, embedded into your policies, embedded into your grants, use bonus points. We put it into our performance incentive funds. You get lots of extra bonus points for the work you do on sectors and career pathways. Utilize a public-private steering committee that fosters leadership. One of the strongest things, as I said, I came from a local community. I worked my tail off to create a local economic development organization. I was the president of the local Chamber of Commerce in our little town of 2,300 people. I did all of that work on the ground. I knew really cool stuff was happening all over the state of Colorado, and in order for it to work for our state, the state had to model those successes. We have to model at the state level what's happening or what we're asking for in our local communities. So we needed to organize our public-private business-led steering committee. So not only is our board follow that model with our 30 business members and executive directors of state agencies and workforce partners, also, we have a sector steering committee that's led by the leaders in their industry across the state that partners with the public partners at the state level to help make sure that we are, at the state level, driving the supports and the tools and the resources to the local area and listening and bubbling all of the things back up and constantly adapting all of our different tools and resources based on the promising practices and the work at the local area. So you have to model both at the state and the local. Recognize the existing work and build on it. That's what I was just talking about. And technical assistance to the regions and the industries is really important. Also, the next slide is, how do you do that? How do you do that technical assistance? First and foremost, learn from your existing partnerships. Learn from the good things that are already happening here in Arkansas. Learn from things that are happening in other states and at the national level. Build a strong local, regional, state partnership as the foundation of everything you'll do. You have to do that first or you're really going to struggle, and you may have already done it. I'm not trying to say you haven't, but I know we've been doing it for 4 years, and every single quarter we're coming back and we're figuring out how to take it to the next level. Then, once you have that, or while you're building that, I should say, because I don't think you're ever done, you need to build a model, tools, resources, and an action for local sectors to take. You'll see that in my bullets here on the next slide, when I talk about the local regional role, there's going to be some similarity. You need to adapt these tools at the state level. Adapt the tools to fit your state so every local region doesn't have to adapt them on their own. Share them with the local regions. Act as a gateway to technical assistance, data, tools, and resources. Broker the collaboration through networking with other state agencies and organizations and resources to make it easier for our local and regional partners to get access to those resources. Bring assets to the table. Staff capacity, grant dollars, you're already doing that. Existing programs, all of those different things. And most important, provide some project management support. Have some support to help organize all of these things and track it all and put it into toolkits and put it into easy to communicate and easy to understand methodology. Really important at the state and local level to use data for tools with technical assistance. We have our annual talent pipeline report. We also have created the regional sector partner convener guide, which is great, and it's totally yours to rip off and duplicate. Slap Arkansas's name on there and go for it. And then we also have our career pathways step-by-step guides. We've just published last fall our 3.0. So this is one of those things constantly evolving and changing. 3.0 was published in September, and we're already working on 4.0 to embed more work-based learning and our apprenticeship work into our career pathway step-by-step guide. Again, it's yours. It's on the website. Take it. The local and regional role. Sector partnerships that drive career pathways. Again, Utilize and customize these frameworks. Proactively integrate industry-led sector partnerships in everything you do. Make it the way you do business with business. Build a core team of public partners that come together. Have the arguments and the disagreements and the challenges and figure out all the yucky sausage making stuff behind the scenes. Your businesses don't need to see that stuff. You can fight it out with the partner that you don't like. You can totally dislike a person. But when you go into that room with those businesses, all they know is that you're partners and you work together and you're there to support them. Keep all the other core partner stuff behind the curtain. Build that core team and make sure that you're very clear on the responsibilities and spread it out. It's a lot of work. You have to share it across partners. It may be written into WIOA now that you have to do sector partnerships, but sector partnerships benefit your regional economy. The work must be shared by everyone, and it cannot be built on the back of the public workforce system. It's not fair. Everybody has to share the load, and it's your responsibility to ask for help and to be willing to accept it. Utilize the technical assistance and the resources that are there to help you. Recognize the value of your state partners. Tell them what you need. Be honest. Don't smile and say everything's fine and dandy in the room when you come together in Little Rock or up here in Hot Springs and then go back and gripe about them to everybody else when you get back home. We all do it. At the state level, we do it about the feds. We all do it. It doesn't lead anywhere. Have honest, hard conversations with each other about what you need to succeed, because the state can't succeed without the locals and the locals can't succeed without the state. You need each other. And tell my locals when you see them at a conference. So really getting into the implementation, the application, it's also important for you to listen first. Listen. Bring industry together. Really listen. Let them lead the conversation. Don't bring these meetings together with an agenda of what you're going to share. Go into those meetings with a blank agenda other than to say to industry, we want to work with you, and before we can do that, we have to understand what your challenges are. This is all laid out in the convener guide. It's super easy to follow, but just don't ever go into the first few meetings with an agenda. If you go in determined that you're going to figure out how these businesses are going to help you meet your performance on your grant, you're going to fail before you get started. Go in with a blank slate and let business lead the conversation. Listen. And then again, these bullets. Interpret what the industry priorities are and develop a response together for them. Act as a gateway to the solutions. Broker collaboration across your programs. Bring assets to the table. Staff capacities, that look a little familiar to the last slide? Exactly the same. You have to do it at the local level too. And provide project management and support. Again, the exact same bullet. You have to do it at the local level too. I wanted to share with you some impact, because I can make this all sound, like a cool thing and you should do it, but you have to understand what's in it for you if you do it. It's also really hard when the first time you convene those businesses. We've actually had partnerships convene, and their top priorities are transportation, supply chain, and policy. They don't even want to talk about workforce. Remember, we launched ours in the middle of the recession. So even though we had a lot of industries telling us unemployment rate is 9%, we still can't hire skilled workers, there were also a lot of industries that didn't even want to talk about workforce. And that will happen. And you have to be patient and you have to be there. And maybe that's the case when you let economic development step up and take the lead role. But don't walk away. Don't go away, because sometime soon they're going to identify workforce as a key issue, and they're going to need you to be there to help develop those solutions. So the impact, and this impact is seen. Nearly every acting or emerging sector partnership in Colorado has increased participation by businesses in the targeted industry and region, as well as all of their public partners from K-12 all the way through. Every single one over each, this just came from our KPI study that we just finished, but over every year we've had this trend. Every single year participation has increased. It's not diminishing as we go along, it's growing. 86% of partnerships implemented joint or shared partners across community partners. 71% of partnerships increase student or job seeker awareness, and I'm not going to read the rest of these to you, but the other thing is we probably have a list this long of what they told us. The one that I really love is the last one. 42% of businesses formed new or joint or increased joint ventures through their sector partnership. So what does that matter to us as workforce development? Do we really care if businesses are growing their businesses or creating new businesses, are expanding their businesses, are using the supplier down the road from them instead of bringing some stuff in from 3 other states? Of course we care, because every one of those create jobs, and every one of those create better jobs, and every one of those strengthen our regional economy and increase our economic vitality. So 42% increased business growth just because they came and sat at the table together in a sector partnership. This is why you need, I know you have some economic development folks here, this is why you need to get economic development involved in every single part of your region and convince them they need to carry their share of the load. A quick map of the Colorado sector partnerships. As I mentioned, we have 14 regions. We have 14 key industries. We've got sector partnerships in about 8 of them right now. We do our sector partnerships by exploring. That's where you're just figuring out if it should happen. Emerging means you've had a launch meeting, you have developed a plan, you have business that have put their name on the list to agree to do the work, and then once you're implementing that plan and you've got working groups and you're actually seeing results, then you identify yourself as active. And we are now working, we have a framework for what it means to be a high-performing sector partnership, and we have a couple sector partnerships that for some reason are hesitating to say that they really truly are high-performing, because I think they're afraid we're going to say, well then now, but we do have a few sector partnerships that are on the cusp of truly being a nationally recognized high-performing sector partnership. And it is across the entire state, little tiny rural areas as well as the metro areas. It can work, Beth's right. You just customize it. You customize it for what's there. My home, so if you kind of look at that dark circle down at the bottom where the 8 is, that's my home. That's where I grew up. One of the poorest, most rural parts of Colorado. We tried to launch sector partnerships 3 years in a row and they failed. And it broke my heart because it's my home and I wanted it to happen. I had to let go. I had to let go and let them realize that they needed a champion. Finally, Adams State University, my alma mater, got a new president. She came in with an economic development lens and offered to have the college be the convener of industry and bring everybody together, and they now have launched a very successful healthcare sector partnership. So in Denver, the healthcare sector partnership is just the hospitals because they're 10 huge hospital systems. They don't want to talk to anybody else. In the San Luis Valley, it's behavioral health, it's the government offices, it's the doctor's offices, it's the dentist, it's the massage therapist. They have a really robust health and wellness sector partnership in these extremely rural counties of southern Colorado. And they've also launched a value-added ag partnership because agriculture is critical. It is the primary industry. But you're not going to get a bunch of farmers. The farmers already get together. They have a potato co-op and they have an alfalfa hay growers group and they have a sheep group and a cow group. They've got them all. They don't want to talk about that kind of stuff. But when you start talking about how can we add value to the produce that you're producing and put more money in your pocket instead of it just shipping over the mountain to somebody else, then they'll come together and talk. So if you have communities that are looking at ag, I strongly recommend that you talk about value-added ag. Sorry, I'm probably going long. You do these slides and you think it's going to be like 10 minutes and then you get all excited about talking about stuff and it takes longer. I also wanted to demonstrate some real meaningful outcomes, not just impact, but outcomes. An additional $1.43 in earnings go back into the community for every dollar that's been invested by the Metro Denver Healthcare Partnership. That's every dollar that Workforce puts in to train someone, $1.43 in increased earnings per hour. Every single hour that those people are working is going back into the community. Over 1,100 people have received training through Colorado's pilot sector partnerships, and in the last 4 years, 93% received industry-recognized credentials. You really have to push for industry-recognized credentials. It's what's going to matter. At least 83% have entered employment, retained employment, or advanced in their jobs as a result of the training that they got that was as a result of a sector partnership. And then just a summary, it's really important that you leverage both policy and partnerships. As we've all said, create that baseline for conversation using data. empower industry to lead. It's really important that they lead and you attach yourself to them as a support partner to allow their leadership to lead. They, just like Lisa said, they don't have time to do minutes. They don't have time to send a bunch of emails, but they have time to lead, and you need to help them with the support so that they can stay in the lead and not get burned out. Act in partnership with industry and policymakers, leverage data and industry support for valuable legislative and policy support, and focus on long-term sustainable solutions, but never, ever, ever underestimate the importance of those short-term quick wins. It may seem tiny to you, it may seem like it doesn't matter, but if business says they need it and you guys can go back and work with your chamber or somebody and make it happen in 2 months, you're going to be their best friend. Don't underestimate how important those things are. If business says they need it, figure it out. Find the right people to help solve it. So I just wanted to share with you all of these links. You'll have the slide deck. Cindy already has the slide deck. These are our website. Our talent pipeline reports, all 3 years are up there. They talk a lot about the work we're doing and how we put it into policy. Our Colorado Talent Dashboard talks about how we're starting to hold ourselves accountable for measures across all of the different systems in the state. Our tools and resources that I told you about are both on sectorsummit.com for the Colorado very specific, and now they have all been taken to the national level and added to work from the Aspen Institute and many national subject matter experts into the Next Generation Sector Partnerships tool guide. It's all up there. It's yours to take and use, rip it off, duplicate it, make it better, bring it back and share it with us. And then I also wanted to give you some real life examples of how this sector partnership work is leading to work-based learning. We're taking work-based learning very seriously in Colorado. We launched a 501c3 organization for youth apprenticeships, and we've raised $14 million from the private sector to launch Swiss-style youth apprenticeships in Colorado. We're also using all of that foundational work to create our opportunity youth apprenticeships and our adult apprenticeships with a strong focus on adult basic ed and dislocated workers. And you can learn a lot more about that by just go to YouTube and search Colorado's Bold Move. That'll give you an understanding of where we were a year ago when we went with the governor to Switzerland. And then CareerWise Colorado is the nonprofit that's launching the youth initiative. Everything that's on there is in-school youth focused, but just know it totally can be applied to any population. And we're going to be working on the step-by-step guides to help make that happen. And as we develop them, we'll give them to you. Unless you develop them first, give them back to us. Currently, and then also we have 2 new things. Our Career Pathway Hub website is in development right now. It's there. You can go look at it, but don't look at it and go, seen that before, because in a couple months it's going to be really cool. So careersincolorado.org, and then talentfound.org. I think Beth talked about the importance of a brand, and so we have launched our Talent Development Network brand. This is everyone, businesses, nonprofits, all of the public partners. Everyone in our Talent Development Network is now a part of Talent Found. And not only is it a brand, we are creating a gateway to make it easier to streamline access for students, job seekers, workers, and businesses to each design their own unique path to success rather than us trying to put them where we think they need to go. And so in closing, I am going to show you a quick video that I hope will help you understand why I am so passionate about this work.
A sector partnership is a regional, industry-led public-private partnership where businesses from within one industry in a geographic area come together with their public partners. They identify the opportunities and challenges facing that industry in that region, and together they develop solutions and they implement those solutions for whatever the priorities are of that industry in that geographic region.
When you bring all those folks together and get them all pulling on the same rope in the same direction, it's this cool fusion of passion and resources and energy. Amazing things happen for that business sector, that industry.
What makes a sector partnership unique is that in the very first couple meetings, the industry comes together, they lead a conversation that's convened by an impartial third party, and they identify the priorities and the goals that the partnership will address.
When I first came to that first meeting and I found out that all the manufacturers had to sit in the front of the room, and all the public partners had to sit around the outside wall. That was a little off-putting to me. I said, hey, what, first class, second class citizen, what's going on here? One of the conveners, I'll give a shout out to Lynn Vossler at Front Range Community College. Lynn was on target with that meeting structure every time we met. I finally realized that what Lynn was doing was she wasn't pushing the public partners to the back. She was forcing the manufacturers to the front.
The typical goals that come out of an initial sector partnership meeting almost always center around challenges with supply chain, networking amongst the industry, workforce or talent challenges, and then sometimes they may have things like transportation or other issues that are a challenge to many businesses within that industry in the geographic area.
We are fighting the same battles, and we're finding ways to fight them together.
Sector partnerships in Colorado are developing solutions for talent in a variety of industries in a variety of ways. A couple examples. In manufacturing, they're really focusing on changing the image of manufacturing in the minds of students, job seekers, parents, and counselors. In IT, they're addressing the immediate needs of a shortage of developers or a shortage of specific technicians in IT companies by coming together and collaborating around the training.
We don't get to show up, complain about all of our problems, dump all that on the public partners, and then walk away and expect them to fix it.
We are learning that we need to align the needs of business earlier in education and throughout all education. We have to change the way we are training our talent in Colorado, and we're working on that through industry-led career pathways guided by our sector partnerships.
Come join with us and help us create this strong collective voice with a clear message. We're on topic. We bring resources. We'll stand behind the projects that we think are going to solve our problems, and we can have more impact. That's what a sector partnership does. It brings all these resources together and focuses them in a way that helps us move forward.
Every region of the state of Colorado has sector partnerships in the industries that are driving their economy. So we have over 20 active sector partnerships throughout the state in every industry, from value-added agriculture and advanced manufacturing to IT and healthcare, even creative industries and tourism.
The reason I got involved was because I have a 4-year-old child, and I feel that if he's going to have the same opportunity when he grows up that I have had, that we need to have a strong manufacturing base.
We're not done. There's no finish line. This is going to be a constant and ongoing effort.
These regional sector partnerships are working with the public partners and the business leaders in the local communities to really address Colorado's economic vitality and Colorado's opportunity for the most vibrant talent pipeline we can have uniquely in each individual region of the state.
Members of our partnership are being asked to go and speak at events outside the state as other organizations are trying to replicate the success that we've had. I think it's going to grow from there. I think it's dropping the proverbial rock in the pond. The pond is Colorado, and we're going to send ripples across the nation.
I love that man. We took him with us to Arizona, as well as our chair of our healthcare sector partnership, and everybody just kept saying, is there a booth we can clone him? And my answer is, I wish, but there are folks like Paul Harder and Yvonne Myers in every single one of your communities. You just need to give them an opportunity to shine. You need to believe that they care enough that they want to step up and do this hard work. Paul is one of the busiest people I know. He is the CEO of, I don't know, about a 60-person manufacturing company. And last year, his CFO was going to retire in a few months, so he was trying to get ready for his CEO's retirement, or CFO's retirement. He had a heart attack and died 3 months before he was supposed to retire. And everybody expected Paul to go away. And even though Paul was in this crazy spin in his personal life and his work life, because the guy was also like his best friend, he never stepped away from the sector partnership. And when I asked him later why, he said, because the sector partnership is what gave me hope, it gave me purpose, and it allowed me to lift my head up out of the sand that I had to be in the company and really allowed me to be who I was and stay focused on something else other than the challenges I had in my business. You have those champions and you have those business people in your communities too. It's kind of like the old adage of, if you want something done, ask the busiest mom to bake the cookies, right? It's just don't assume that a business can't and won't do it. Let them choose. And if you bring enough of them together, you will have a Paul Harder come up and be that champion for your partnership. You really will.